impromptu video. Something I was thinking about. Chris Stuckman. So Chris Stuckman recently announced that he was directing a movie called Shelby Oaks. And actually, he just made a video about a Kickstarter he's going to make, which everyone should support so the movie can get financing. But after he announced he was going to make the movie, he shifted his channel away to also making videos about topics about filmmaking and the filmmaking industry. And I found these to be very interesting. And I want to talk about them. Specifically, a few he did. The Last Duel should not have gotten review bombed. Why they don't make them like they used to. How come everything has switched to streaming. And I enjoy his general analysis. But I find his criticisms of why we have these problems, such as why a movie like The Last Duel failed the box office, or why things have stretched to streaming, or why we don't get as many original big budget movies anymore. His perspective is very fascinating. And if you haven't seen his videos, you should watch them. But what he pinpoints as the problem to a lot of these things, I find debatable. I don't want to come off as though I want to fight him or something. I just find his arguments to be weird and misplaced. We're both coming from different places, me and Chris. I'm coming from the place of an audience member. I would love to be a filmmaker one day, make movies, but right now I'm not a filmmaker. I don't make movies. Chris Stuckman, since he is making a movie, and he's been doing YouTube for a long time, and he has over 1 million subscribers, he is higher up the ladder pole than me. And so he can definitely see things from a studio perspective and from a director perspective, especially since he's interviewed a lot of directors and stuff like that. He can see that perspective more than I can. But I noticed that a lot of his argument, why films that are more original are not as seen as much, to be inherently flawed. His main argument is it's the fault of the audience.
But when we show up to Black Widow and Spider-Man and Ghostbusters and all of that, what we're telling Hollywood, people who fund movies, producers, and all of those folks is that all we give a shit about is IP. So what movies are we actually showing up to support? Because Hollywood hears that. If we go to see whatever Marvel, DC, Star Wars movie in the theater, but we look at a movie like, say, Under the Skin, and we're like, I'll wait till streaming. Well, then we're going to get less Under the Skins because nobody knows what the fuck that movie is.
Because they do not go out of their way to try to see more original movies in the theater, which causes less of them to be made. Now, before I go into it, I should say that he does clarify that some movies are screwed up by the studio. But definitely in his videos, he minimalizes those cases and more broadly talks about the harm audiences cause by not going out and watching those movies. And he spends a lot of the time trying to preach to his audience to go out and watch more original films. And I appreciate that. And I respect what he's saying. Examples like The Last Duel, like I said before, and Guillermo del Toro's new movie, Nightmare Alley, I think are perfect examples of movies that had horrible marketing campaigns. If I ask 9 out of 10 casual moviegoers, they haven't heard of these movies. And that's a huge problem. Like, they straight up have never heard of these movies. Maybe Nightmare Alley nominated for Best Picture. All the other ones, but Last Duel, most likely, if I asked my dad, he wouldn't have heard of it, because they don't market these films at all. You know what the movie my dad did hear about was King Richard. There was promotions for King Richard and House of Gucci everywhere. And those, I don't know about House of Gucci, I have a feeling it's based on some book or something, but they're not based on any famous, like, super well-known IP, like Spider-Man or something. Second, and this is an odd one to criticize, but I find this idea that, like, you're going to tell your audience to see more stuff. I don't know how much that's going to work. Like, everyone who listens to Chris Stuckman is already a huge movie fan, So why would him telling his already hugely movie fan centric audience to watch more movies or to like get more involved in trying to seek out smaller films. I really don't think that's the bigger issue. Chris Stuckman fans are already going to go out of their way to watch more interesting films. Even though Chris Stuckman has 1 million subscribers, in comparative to like the rest of the human population, he has an extremely niche fan base. That's just a fact. If you want to change what kind of movies are seen and what kind of movies are made, then the only way to do that is like I think from the inside. I think studios kind of have a self-fulfilling prophecy where they make a weird film, they don't market it because they think it's going to fail, and then it fails because they didn't market it, and then they don't make that movie again. I think it's unfair to blame the audience on that. I don't think you should ever blame the audience. And final point here, and this is something people don't want to hear, sometimes movies just don't land with the audience. I mean, we saw this in the 80s with Blade Runner. Yeah, you could say it was mismarketed and it became a cult hit later on. And you could say that E.T. overshadowed it, but ultimately, I just don't think the audience was right for that movie at that time. And I don't think it's right to blame the audience for that film's failure either. Just something like West Side Story might not just play that well today, even though I love it. I think everyone else loves it. But that's just my opinion. My movie opinion. Chris Dykeman, you're great. Just a thought I had, and a thought I've had for a while. I just wanted to share it in some quick video, which I think I'm going to regret. Or maybe I won't, because this is either going to get no views, and I'm going to regret making it, or it's going to get a lot of views, and I'm going to regret making it. So I'm going to, even though this is about Chris Stuckman, I'm going to do the Jeremy Johns thing where I punch the camera. And out.